Hey guys, welcome back to the Logic Speak podcast. I'm your host, Adam Bieber, sitting across the seat from my co-host, Jason Etheridge. Jason, how are you today?
Apparently very serious. Doing great.
There was
Doing
like
great.
a
Happy to be
crack
back.
joke right before we went live. So
Perfect.
as I mentioned before, you kind of just get
What you get?
what you get. So today's episode, Jason, I'm excited about because it's something we haven't done yet before, but I think it's something we're going to do again. Just
Depends on
because
how it goes.
I'm already anticipating it going brilliantly.
Yeah, perfect.
So we're going to talk a little bit about a book that you and I both love, that we've read, one that we encourage our listeners to read. For us as an organization, we'll get into how you came across the book, but it's part of our LDP curriculum. So this is a read that I actually did this year because how about this? I'm wrapping up LDP.
Wow.
I know.
We haven't kicked you out yet, so that's good.
We're already. I must be becoming a leader.
Yeah, that's right.
We're already.
Before we talk about the book,
go ahead.
there are 3 or 4 books that you can map Logic Speaks seasons through, right? When we learned the concept, when we to set the stage, the excitement is this is one of those books that in 21 years has had one of the biggest impacts on our company.
I love
that. That's why I'm excited for us to talk about this.
Good. I'm excited too. You recently put a post out about it, and it got got a little bit of traction. Some folks were like, "Hey, thanks for reminding me about that book. I read it years ago." Somebody that said this, I read. Amanda at Kaseya said, "I read this every year."
Isn't that awesome?
I thought that was so cool.
Shout out to Amanda.
Yes. So the book is called Leadership and Self-Deception. It was created by the Arbinger Institute. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this book. I'm holding it up if you're watching it on camera so you can see it. If you're interested in getting a copy after we talk about it, I would recommend it. Let us know if you do. But Jason, you have a particular fancy to this book because of the history that it has. But it's funny because you also have an interesting take on the title of this book. So set the table. What is kind of the overarching theme of the book? And then how did you come across it?
Yeah,
Let's
sure.
start there.
So first, let me say that this is quite possibly the best book with the worst title ever. I think that's how I start every time.
Okay.
Because I think that it's very off-putting to read without diving into the book, and maybe that's why they did it. Is that it grabs you, right? You're going to have
jarring.
You're going to have an emotional response one way or the other.
Yeah.
But it is such a phenomenal book content-wise. I am pretty sure that my business coach, these many years ago, recommended that I read this book.
Yep.
And that's how I think that the content showed up to me. I read it, and then I got our chief of staff, Ashley, to read it, and I continue to talk about it year after year after year. So it has had deep roots, both in the culture of our company and some of the things that we've tried to implement here based on the content from the book. And honestly, not to look too far ahead, but it even has weaved itself through my personal life as well, which we can talk about also.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Another shout out, one to John Ott, because that's your business coach.
That's right.
We love John, and eventually he will be on this podcast. Right. Definitely in 2026, because we're already getting close to the end of the year here. But then also shout out to the Greater North Fulton Chamber of Commerce, because this book is part of the pre-read curriculum for the 38-year-old program that is Leadership North Fulton that I'm also a part of this year. So
when I learned from Ashley, I think I don't know how many years they've done that, but last year Ashley, our chief of staff, went through that program.
Yep.
And same thing, that was required pre-reading, and I already knew it was going to be a great program. If that's how you're starting, you can go nowhere but up.
Well, it was so great because when you're bringing our class is large, it's almost 40 people. You're bringing 40 leadership-minded, leadership-focused leaders from different backgrounds. We've got people from large corporations, and there's people that are entrepreneurs. It gave us all a common language that we could work around and start to have really deep, meaningful conversations right out the gate on our retreat. And so I thought it was super helpful just for that aspect. But also what you learn, kind of the subtitle is The Secret to Transforming Relationships and Unleashing Results. And there's 2 kind of main theme topics we're going to cover today. One is viewing people as people, not things. The other is kind of the consequence of creating false narratives.
Yep.
Typically about others. But sometimes we do it to ourselves too.
There you go.
So let's talk about the first. And in this viewing people as people, there is a metaphor that is given in the book, the box. So if you could just kind of unpack what is the box and what does it mean to be inside and outside of the box? And if I could just real quick disclaimer, we're not talking about thinking outside the box. So you kind of have to ditch that language.
That's right.
Which we had to make that statement in our L&F class because, you kind of immediately start to think, well, I'm just going to think outside the box. It's not about being creative.
Right.
There's a different meaning. So if you could kind of summarize that.
Let me, and I can do it, I think, through the journey that Logic Speak, right, has had with this content. So, as a leader, and certainly as people who manage other people, there can be a tendency to forget, even though this sounds really weird now that we're this far into it, but to forget that people bring all of themselves to work. And so when you're not getting the results, if you become so results focused as a company that you just assume that people are there to do what's needed, and you forget that they might have had an argument with their wife that morning. Their kids might have been just like screaming bloody murder half the night. And so you're so focused on the task, the results, and to kind of use some of this language, you see them as gears or cogs or knobs or buttons or levers that you can use to get the results that you want. And you completely, that's ultimately how I would define being in the box, is that you are seeing people not as human beings who have needs and desires and emotions and feelings and challenges, but you just see them as objects to accomplish what the business needs to accomplish. Then you will get the results that you will get from that. And people will feel not seen. They will not feel appreciated. And ultimately, I think that will lead to them leaving your company.
Yeah.
Frankly.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely has a negative impact on the culture when you're seeing a person as data, as a tool. Being in our field, we use a lot of really cool tools. We use a lot of AI.
Yep.
Those things don't have emotion. They don't have baggage. They don't have a heart. They don't have a soul. And so to accidentally see someone through that lens can be really detrimental.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the questions, that I think maybe helps you get into this idea that, maybe I am doing that, is if you've ever uttered the phrase, why can't they just do their job? Right?
Which seems like a reasonable thing to ask.
It's one we've all uttered probably 1,000,000 times as leaders, is why can't they just come in and do their jobs?
Yeah.
And I think that points to the very need for this book and the very need for this concept, is that there are reasons why we all don't show up perfectly every single day.
You said in your post, am I viewing people as people or as things to deploy to get what I want done?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, dang.
Yeah. Well, and I think I've said, I don't know if it was on the post, but I've said this before. What's really great about this book and this concept is that it's almost impossible to fake. If you are viewing people as cogs and gears and levers, you can't act like you're there for them, that they will feel that. And so it's not, what this book isn't, is a set of, life hacks to be able to fool people into thinking that you view them as people.
Wow.
That will never work.
Wow.
Because we all are, human beings are connection and acceptance and respect and appreciation magnets, right? We know how to measure, and we can really, really see through that. And I think that reading this book and changing how you view people is the first thing, and then changing what you do or how you show up.
There's a trickle down effect too, because if the person at the top sees people as just tools and objects,
right,
then guess what? Their direct subordinates are going to treat their teams as tools and objects.
Correct.
I have a friend of mine I was on the phone with towards the end of last week, and he was telling me about how he was sick. He's been struggling in the organization that he's in, and just having a hard time with kind of how he feels like he's being treated. And honestly, I bet if he read the book, he'd be like, well, I'm inside the box to everyone I work with.
Sure.
Which is sad. Like, you don't want that for anybody. But he said that he had two really great examples. One was his own. He had put in a couple sick days, had the sick days to take. And while being sick, his boss messaged him or texted him and said, "Hey, are you planning to work at all this quarter?" And I was like, dang. What's crazy is simultaneously he had talked to someone who he shared that with somebody else, and it might have been his brother or his fiance or something. And they said, well, here's what my boss said the last time I was sick. And they pulled up a message, and it was like, hey, we got your back. We'll hold it down. You take care of you. Rest. All good. And he was like, oh, so there's another alternative here. Like, this isn't the only, oh, man, dude, it hurt me to hear him say that, and just to kind of put myself in his shoes and go, that would be so brutal to have to be on the receiving end of. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What was the part of the book that kind of hit you the hardest? Was it kind of this concept of the inside the box, outside the box? Did it make you self-reflect on your leadership style when you first came across it?
The part that hit the hardest is to think that you're out for the people, or to believe that you have people's best interests in mind. Sure. And then to realize that through your actions, what you're conveying is not that.
Yeah.
Because ultimately the questions you ask, the things that you focus on are going to give you away. And yeah, so it's really kind of that recognition that I was inside the box, which as leaders, I think that's kind of the point of the book. At some point we all are, right? This is not let me read this book and now I'm done, I'm all good. It's a constant evaluation. It is a constant thing to ask yourself.
It's uncomfortable too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. In every interaction, and how am I showing up? How am I showing up at work? How am I showing up at home with my wife, or with my children, even, or with my friends? We can get inside the box pretty quickly.
Yeah. Two of the examples that I thought of when kind of preparing for this was at work, you view teammates or subordinates as a means to get a goal, mm-hmm. Versus just valuing people.
Right.
Because what's interesting about that is you hire for the skill set. So if you trust your ability to hire the right skill set, and then you take really good care of the person, then they're going to execute that really high skill set.
Yep.
But if all you do is focus on the skill set alone, and then all you do is hyper focus on are you hitting the skill set, and you neglect the human aspect, then you actually it works against you. Yeah. It doesn't make you more efficient. It doesn't make you a good manager. It makes you a micromanager and
a demotivator.
A demotivator. That's way better than what I was going to say.
Well, something that you and I haven't talked about yet, but there is this kind of intersection that you and I have learned before, that when, as a leader, as a manager, when you experience something from someone that you don't expect, you've hired the good person, you've hired someone who's who's qualified, talented, they know what they're doing, and then something happens, right? Either they show up late when they weren't supposed to, they missed a big meeting with a prospective client. You can put your plenty of examples there. You have a decision to make as a leader. Are you going to believe the best? Or are you going to assume the worst? And if you are in the box, chances are you're going to assume the worst, because that lever that you pulled didn't work. Like, the thing didn't come out at the end. That button pushed and nothing happened. If you believe the best, then you assume the best about their intentions. You give them every single chance. You assume all the things that could possibly be going on in their lives. You see them as human beings who have all of these challenges in life, like we all do. And you in that gap, you put the best of intentions, and you are outside the box. So I think there's a really good dovetail between those two concepts that just occurred to me.
Yeah.
And it's stuff that we talk about.
One of the thoughts here too is where this applies at home is seeing your family as merely extensions of your expectations.
Yep.
I was like, dang, that's a gut punch.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's to kind of get into the home side that you and I just kind of talked about. The fundamental attribution error you and I talked about just before we started recording. Yes. This idea that this fundamental attribution error means that we see other people through their actions, or we attribute it to character flaws or personality defects.
Yep.
But we view our own actions through our intentions.
Yeah.
And if you only knew my circumstances, if you only knew why I was late, if you only knew the traffic, my kid, wouldn't get out of bed, or, my wife needed something, or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
You shouldn't view by my actions, but you have personality issues, or it's just because you're lazy, or it's just because,
Yeah.
And I think that, again, it has a really good dovetail here with how we view others.
Well, and then that kind of leads to another kind of segment in the book that talks about the self-deception piece is the story that we make up on the back end of that.
Yep.
You're late because you're lazy.
Right.
And you don't care about your work here, and you don't respect me as your leader, and then all of a sudden you have this entire narrative created about somebody.
That honestly, the thing that was so impactful for me, that has nothing to do with that person. You have literally had a whole conversation with yourself.
Yep.
And they don't show up at all. It's all from your perspective and kind of this in the box thinking that that you have. And the personal example, which I loved as well, because when I read this book was when we were in that season at home. We had a brand new baby. The baby wasn't sleeping through the night, right? And the baby cries, and then what happens, right? We assume on our side we're awake, we hear the baby, and then it's why isn't she getting up? Well, doesn't she hear the baby? Doesn't she know I have a big presentation at work tomorrow? Doesn't she know, right? And then we start to make up this story that now she's a bad mom, she's not a good wife because she's not getting up to take care of the baby, and doesn't she know how that impacts me?
Yeah.
And that whole conversation was had in the middle of the night just with yourself.
Uh-huh.
And she might just legitimately be asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was really impactful for me in that moment or in that season. And that's how I was saying earlier that this not only has helped me in the business world, but has paid dividend as well.
Where it helped me, if I could just be a little personal and vulnerable, since you have been. So I've been divorced before, and as we unpacked this book in LDP, I shared with you guys, like, I see a lot of myself in my past relationship. I'm married now to someone else. I don't know how to say that. I said I'm remarried, and they're like, "Oh, you married? You guys got back together?" I was like, "No." So, anyways, if you got tips on that, feel free to send them my way. But, and so it's really been a journey of growth for me. Now, I'm in no way am I going to get into the causes of the failure of that relationship. Sure. All I can speak to is my own mistakes, my own shortcomings. And one of the things I was very guilty of was assuming motive, assuming intent, and becoming very judgmental and dismissive because of that. And that was, now, was I justified? Maybe, but that's not even the point. The point is being able to see myself, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago and going, goodness gracious.
Yep.
The amount of times I put people in the box.
Yep.
And the pain that I had to go through and the counseling that I had to go through in order to kind of get to this realization of what I was doing and judging someone by their actions, not by their intent or by their heart. It's not helpful. And so I'm almost on the opposite end of the spectrum, extra cautious now because I don't want to make those same mistakes again.
Right.
And so I think I'm even more sensitive to just have regular gut checks of, okay, why is this frustrating to me? Am I making up stories? Do I need to kind of just unpack this? And I'm way more vocal, and you can ask my wife now. I don't have a problem sharing. And so I'll just talk about it. I'm like, hey, we need to talk this through so I can apologize because I probably was a butthead at some point. And so let me just kind of process this with you. So, I mean, it's so helpful personally.
Yeah.
Not just for leading people in the office. It looked like you were going to say something. Did you have a
No, I was just going to agree with you, and I think I was moving into the next. So.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool. So self-deception isn't about lying to others; it's about lying to ourselves.
Yourselves. That's right.
Yep.
That's exactly
And
right.
most of what we think about others isn't true. It's a story we've built in our own heads. And so once we recognize that, how do we stop it? That's kind of the closing thought here. Is like, okay, inside the box, outside the box, I can clearly see where I have made up stories or narratives or assumptions. How do I stop doing that?
Yeah.
What are some of the stop and start things that I need to do?
I have a couple things that came to mind that I've tried to implement in, as a leader in my own life, and especially here at Logic Speak. One of them seems, and maybe it wasn't obvious for me and it's obvious for everyone else, but one of the things that keeps me remembering that people are people,
Yeah.
is that when I, especially like on a Monday, but even throughout the week, if I'm meeting with someone, I try to remember to talk about how they're doing first before we dig into whatever topic, right? This idea that yes, we can sit down in a meeting and we can just dive right into the business side of things.
Sure.
But that's gear and cog thinking. And really what we need to do is relate to each other first. How are you coming up? I think John, my business coach, asked me, like, how am I finding you today?
Yeah.
Which
how
is
are you showing up today?
Yeah, how are you showing up? And that's his way of essentially doing that very thing.
Yeah.
Seeing someone as a human being that has real life going on and debriefing about that first, caring about how they're showing up before we dive into the topic.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, sales, IT, it doesn't matter, right? That's one of those things that I've really tried to do a good job of. And I don't always, right? Because you come in hot, you come in with an agenda, there's something that you need to talk about. But if you can stop and first, and I've even had to go back up the truck and say, wait a minute, before we get into all that, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And that just resets the tone and makes sure that
and you have to mean it.
Yeah.
You can't just do it to check the box, but you really got to be like, how are you today? Good. What was your weekend like? Yeah, no, it can't be robot. Like, it has to just be like genuine curiosity.
Right.
And really even if you're like, oh, but that's a waste of time. Like, think about what potential there is for in those opening 5 minutes for you to have clues for how you can best be a leader in that conversation, no matter how business related it is. Like, you can still, like, if somebody, I kind of shared some things with you before we jumped on this podcast.
Yep.
I would imagine it impacts the way that you would respond to me if I missed a deadline or if we talked about something challenging my day.
And you will probably find that those first 5 minutes, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it was just talking about vacation. But sometimes those 5 minutes may be worth the whole meeting.
Yeah.
To find out how someone's showing up or what's going on in their life that might be impacting their experience or where they are.
Yeah. You kind of jotted down a few things here on our notes, so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about them. So one of the things was to stop building imaginary cases against people and to start seeing people as people.
Yep.
And that's a great start. Like, just be relational, be personal. Remember, people are bringing their whole self. Mm-hmm. So are you.
Yep.
Sometimes it helps to be the first one to kind of open up the vulnerability. Hey man, I just want to let you know, even if you're the leader, I'm a little scattered today. Yeah. I've had a hard morning, and I just wanted to share that with you before we get into this. So if something seems off, I just have a lot going on.
So good.
That's so cool.
So
like, to be on
good.
the receiving end of that is like, oh dang, like,
well,
okay, like, hey man, just so you know, like, I'm kind of off today too. Like, this happened over the weekend. You know, then all of a sudden there's this bond because we both know and we're okay. And then we can get through whatever it is, the task that we have ahead of us.
I would say nothing invites vulnerability like vulnerability.
Yeah. Yes, that's so good. Yeah, 100%. That's so true. Assume positive intent.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of talked about that earlier. Fill in the void, fill in the gap, fill in the unknown with positive intent. That doesn't mean be blind to recurring patterns, be blind to the obvious, but it does mean that there are times where you truly do have a gap of unknown. And that if you start with, I'm just going to fill the gap with trust, I'm going to fill the gap with positive intent until I know more.
Exactly. It's so funny. We, my wife and I both, because she's a business owner as well. And so I read the book, she read the book, we both love the book. And we gave it to another leader, not as a, like, you need this, but, just like, hey man, this is a really great book. And so, we gave them a copy.
Yeah.
And they read it, and so their response was, "So what you're saying is it's always all my fault?" Like, no. That's no. But I do think that that's where kind of the title is, a little bit deceptive. But,
sure.
That is not what this book is saying. It's not to say that you can't still hold people accountable. It's how you view them and how you, like you said, how you approach them when there's a gap.
Yeah.
That's what's important.
I mean, and it's also this idea that no matter how you approach it, for us at Logic Speak, you're not just managing machines.
Right.
You're actually stewarding souls.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually lives and families and people attached to the roles that we have here, and that's a big responsibility as a leader.
Yep.
What changes have you seen personally, just in your family, community? Those are kind of our big.
One of the things that I love is that when I turn the corner and I hear people having real, authentic conversations.
Yeah.
Being, like you said, as a leader, being willing to go first and to say, oh my gosh, let me tell you how hard life is right now. Once people feel the freedom to be authentic, they will bring their true selves to work.
Yeah.
And as leaders, when they don't feel judged for what they bring, right? I was just telling you earlier, right? As a leader, you have to be willing to hold things for people. And I know that language may be really weird, but what it means is when someone brings you something heavy, you help them hold it.
Yep.
To the extent that you can.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, then people start to show up more authentically. They start to give more of themselves. And this is all not about business results, but ultimately the results of the business will even be better.
Yeah, the byproduct is
that you have a more successful business.
Yeah, a more bought-in team.
Right.
People that actually feel loved, cared for, seen at least.
Right.
And when people feel that way, they're willing to do more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, gosh, there's so much more that I want to say, but we're pretty much right on our time here. To close, if you could challenge our listeners to do one thing this week, what would that be? Other than
read the book?
Read the book.
No, I think the first step in making any sort of personal growth or life change is not to just go off half-cocked and apply a concept without fully understanding, but it's really just to start to notice.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's always the first step, is to say, I wonder if this is something that I need to pay attention to. So start to notice, what is the first thing you ask people when you start a meeting? When people ask you, this is another thing I didn't say earlier that I noticed in myself. People would ask me how my weekend was, and I would answer and then walk away. And I don't mean that stilted, I don't mean it but it occurred to me that if I view people as people, then I should ask them back.
Yeah.
How was your weekend?
Yeah.
What was fun? What did you do fun? Or, those kinds of things. So, that came out of me noticing, like, I have no idea what they did over the weekend. And so again, back up the truck and rewind and say, you know what? I'm sorry. I didn't ask you. What'd you guys do?
Yeah.
And so anyway, start to notice before you do anything else. Start to notice how you're showing up.
I think that's really good. I think sometimes we think we have to make a big astronomical change in order to actually see the benefit of change, but oftentimes small incremental changes over long periods of time have the bigger impact.
Yep. And
so starting somewhere of just starting to notice, I think is great. I think self-awareness is huge. I think it's pivotal to growth and leadership. I would also recommend, again, we're not endorsed by the Aperture Institute, but if we sell a bunch of copies, maybe they'll send us a little love. Really would encourage, grab a copy of this book, enjoy it. Let us know your thoughts and your feedback. Again, we really hope that this podcast is a helpful resource to you in your leadership journey. And if you're enjoying it, would be honored if you would subscribe and continue to follow along. You can listen on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And I believe video streaming is available on all of them. And so hopefully you're watching this or at least just listening to it, but we do appreciate it.
Yep.
Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back soon with another episode. Jason, thank you.
Thank you.